What do old apartment neighborhoods in Vietnam really look like? Who still lives there? What stories have these buildings witnessed over the past decades? Today, I'd like to take you somewhere very different from the modern skyline that many visitors usually see in Hanoi. Hello everyone, I'm Phong, a low-income worker living and working in Hanoi, Vietnam. Today I'm taking you to explore one of the oldest apartment neighborhoods in the city. But before we get there, let's begin the journey. The streets are already busy. Thousands of motorbikes are moving in every direction. If this is your first time seeing traffic in Vietnam, it might look confusing. Cars, motorbikes, buses, people crossing the street, street vendors, everything seems to happen at the same time. Yet somehow, it all works. Many foreigners ask me if riding a motorbike in Hanoi is stressful. The answer is yes, at first. But after living here for a while, you slowly learn how the traffic flows. People don't usually follow perfect lines like in some Western countries. Instead, everyone constantly reads each other's movements. You slow down, someone lets you pass, you make eye contact for a second. Without saying a word, both of you already know who will move first. It almost feels like thousands of people are having one giant silent conversation every day. Motorbikes are the most common way to travel in Vietnam. They're affordable, easy to park, and much more practical for the narrow streets found throughout the city. For many families, a motorbike isn't just transportation. It's how parents take their children to school, how workers commute every morning, how food is delivered, how small businesses transport their products. Sometimes you'll even see an entire family riding on one motorbike, something that surprises many foreign visitors. As I continue riding through Hanoi, the scenery slowly begins to change. The modern office buildings become less frequent, the streets become narrower, the trees grow older, and the atmosphere becomes much quieter. Today's destination is a place that many tourists never get to see. These old apartment neighborhoods known locally as Khu Thap Vi have existed for several decades. Many of them were built from the 1960s to the 1980s. Originally, they were homes provided for government employees, factory workers, teachers, doctors, and many ordinary families. For a long time, these buildings represented a dream. Owning an apartment here meant stability. It meant having a permanent place to live. Generations of children grew up in these hallways. Neighbors knew each other by name. Everyone shared the same courtyards, staircases, and daily routines. Even though Hanoi has changed dramatically over the years, many of these neighborhoods are still standing today. Some have been renovated, others continue to age quietly with time. But every building has its own memories. Every balcony tells a different story. Today, I'd like to show you this side of Hanoi. Not the luxurious shopping malls, not the expensive neighborhoods, but the places where everyday life has quietly continued for generations. After about 30 minutes on the road, I've finally arrived. Let's go inside. Walking through this neighborhood feels very different from walking around modern apartment complexes. There are no luxury lobbies, no marble floors, no reception desks, no underground parking garages. Instead, everything here feels simple, familiar, and full of memories. The buildings are only 4 or 5 stories tall. Most of the walls have faded over time. You can easily see patches of peeling paint and weathered concrete that have been exposed to decades of rain and sunshine. The staircases are narrow. The handrails have become smooth after being touched by countless hands over many years. Some apartments have replaced their original windows. Others still keep the old wooden frames that have been there for decades. From the outside, these buildings may look old, but for many families, they are much more than just apartments. They are places where children grew up, where parents spent their entire working lives, and where grandparents now enjoy their retirement. One thing I always notice is how close the neighbors seem to be. Many families have known each other for 30 or 40 years, some even longer. People still greet each other every morning. They stop for a short conversation before going to work. Children play together in the shared courtyards. Older residents often sit downstairs, chatting, while watching the neighborhood slowly wake up. Life here moves at a much slower pace compared to the busy streets outside. As I continue walking deeper into the neighborhood, I begin noticing small details everywhere. Flower pots placed outside apartment doors, old bicycles leaning against the walls, bird cages hanging from balconies, laundry drying in the afternoon sunlight. Air conditioners of different generations attached randomly to the building, electrical wires stretching from one balcony to another. Nothing seems perfectly organized, yet somehow everything feels alive. One of the most unique features of Hanoi's old apartment blocks is something locals call chuong kop, which literally translates to tiger cages. You may notice metal frames extending from many balconies. Originally, these structures were added by residents to create a little more living space. Some people use them as small storage areas. Others turn them into tiny kitchens. Some even grow vegetables and flowers there. Although these additions weren't part of the original design, they have gradually become one of the most recognizable characteristics of Hanoi's old apartment neighborhoods. Many architects believe these buildings are an important part of the city's history. They tell the story of how Hanoi developed during different periods. While some neighborhoods are being renovated or replaced by modern high-rise buildings, many people hope at least a few of these old apartments will be preserved for future generations. Because once they're gone, a part of Hanoi's history disappears with them. I continue wandering through the small alleys between the buildings. The atmosphere is surprisingly peaceful. There are no loud shopping malls, no flashing billboards, only the occasional sound of someone cooking lunch, the laughter of children playing somewhere nearby, a television playing from an open window, and the distant sound of a radio coming from one of the apartments. It's the kind of everyday life that tourists rarely experience. Eventually, I leave the apartment complex and get back on my motorbike. The city becomes busy again. Traffic slowly gets heavier as I continue my journey. After riding for a while, I reach an area where a major construction project is taking place. This is part of Hanoi's new Ring Road project, one of the largest transportation developments currently being built in the capital. The goal is to reduce traffic congestion and improve connections between different parts of the city. Building a road like this isn't easy. It passes through neighborhoods that have existed for many years. As a result, many houses along the planned route have already been purchased by the government and are scheduled to be demolished. Some families have already moved to new homes. Others are still waiting for relocation procedures to be completed. When you look around, it's an unusual sight. On one side, you can see modern construction equipment working every day. On the other side, there are empty houses waiting to disappear. Some buildings have broken windows, some no longer have doors. Others still contain traces of the people who once lived there. It's a reminder that cities are constantly changing. Development often brings better roads, better infrastructure, and new opportunities. But it also means saying goodbye to places that have been part of people's lives for decades. I sometimes wonder what these streets looked like 20 or 30 years ago. How many children grew up here? How many family dinners took place behind these walls? And how many memories will remain only in photographs after the buildings are gone? Progress always comes with change. For a fast-growing city like Hanoi, that change is happening almost every day. After leaving the construction area behind, I continue riding toward another old residential neighborhood. Although it's not far away, the atmosphere feels completely different once again. Small local shops begin appearing along the roadside. Tiny grocery stores, street food stalls, coffee shops with plastic chairs placed under the shade of large trees, and groups of elderly residents sitting together, enjoying another quiet afternoon. This is the kind of neighborhood where people still know each other's names, where daily life happens slowly, and where simple conversations often last much longer than planned. As I ride through these familiar streets, I decide it's finally time for a short break. There's a small drink shop just ahead that looks perfect. Let's stop there for a while. I park my motorbike beside a small roadside drink stall. These kinds of shops are everywhere in Vietnam. Some are only a few square meters in size. Some are simply a cart placed under the shade of a large tree. Yet they have become an important part of everyday life for many Vietnamese people. After walking around for quite a while under the summer sun, I'm feeling a little thirsty. So today, I'm ordering one of my favorite drinks, fresh sugarcane juice. If you've never tried it before, I highly recommend giving it a chance when you visit Vietnam. Making sugarcane juice is surprisingly simple. The vendor feeds several long stalks of fresh sugarcane into a powerful pressing machine. The machine slowly crushes the cane, squeezing out every drop of its naturally sweet juice. Sometimes they press the sugarcane twice to extract even more juice. Many shops also add a small piece of kumquat or a little fresh lime to balance the sweetness. Finally, everything is poured over a cup filled with ice. The result is an incredibly refreshing drink that is perfect for Vietnam's hot weather. Unlike soft drinks, the sweetness comes naturally from the sugar cane itself. It's sweet without feeling overwhelming, cold, fresh, and very easy to drink. A glass of sugarcane juice usually costs between 20,000 and 30,000 Vietnamese dong, or roughly 80 cents to a little over $1, depending on the location. For many Vietnamese people, especially during the summer, this is one of the most popular drinks. Office workers stop for one after work. Students buy it after school. Construction workers often enjoy a cold glass during their lunch break. While drinking my sugarcane juice, I simply sit back and watch the neighborhood around me. People ride by on motorbikes. Some stop briefly to buy a drink before continuing on their way. A few elderly residents are chatting under the trees. Children are riding bicycles nearby. Nothing extraordinary is happening. Yet somehow, moments like these are exactly what I enjoy the most. Travel isn't always about famous landmarks. Sometimes it's simply about sitting quietly and watching everyday life unfold. After finishing my drink, I continue my journey. This time, I'm heading toward a park near the area where I live. Whenever I have free time, I often come here to walk for about 30 to 45 minutes. For me, it's one of the easiest ways to relax after spending the entire day working in front of a computer. As the afternoon slowly turns into evening, the atmosphere changes completely. The weather becomes much cooler. The harsh sunlight gradually disappears. A gentle breeze begins to move through the trees. More and more people start arriving. Parents bring their children to play. Teenagers gather with friends. Middle-aged people go for a walk after dinner. Many elderly residents come here every evening for light exercise. Some people practice Tai Chi. Others dance together in small groups while listening to music. Some simply walk around the park at their own pace. Parks play an important role in daily life in Vietnam. Unlike gyms or private clubs, public parks are free for everyone. People don't need expensive memberships to stay active. All they need is a comfortable pair of shoes and a little free time. Perhaps that's one reason why parks become so lively every evening. Everyone can find a place here, regardless of age or income. I find a quiet path and begin walking slowly. After sitting in front of my computer for many hours every day, these simple walks help my body feel much better. Exercise doesn't always have to be complicated. Sometimes a peaceful walk surrounded by trees is already enough. As I continue walking, I watch the sky gradually change color. The buildings begin turning golden under the evening sunlight. The sounds of birds replace the noise of the busy afternoon traffic. For a few moments, everything feels surprisingly peaceful. Living in Hanoi isn't always easy. The city is crowded, traffic can be overwhelming, life moves quickly, and as someone earning about 350 US dollars a month, I still have to think carefully before spending money. There are many things I can't afford right now, many places I haven't had the chance to visit, many dreams that still feel quite far away. But I've also realized something over the past few years. A meaningful life doesn't always require expensive experiences. Sometimes happiness comes from very ordinary moments. Watching the sunset after work, taking a quiet walk through the park, enjoying a simple glass of sugarcane juice, or spending a peaceful evening surrounded by people simply living their everyday lives. When I first started making these videos, I simply wanted to show people what life is really like here in Vietnam. Not only the famous tourist attractions, not only luxury hotels, not only beautiful cafes, but also the everyday life that millions of Vietnamese people experience. The places where we work, the streets we travel every day, the neighborhoods where families have lived for generations. Because I believe those ordinary moments are also worth sharing. Every city has its famous landmarks, but the real personality of a city often hides in its ordinary streets, inside small local cafes, old apartment buildings, neighborhood parks, or conversations between strangers at a roadside drink stall. Those are the places where you begin to understand how people truly live. As the sky becomes darker, I realize it's time to head home. Tomorrow will be another working day, another ordinary day. But perhaps that's exactly what makes life interesting. Every ordinary day becomes another story waiting to be told. Thank you so much for spending this afternoon with me. I hope this video has helped you discover another side of Hanoi that many tourists never get to see. Not the newest buildings, not the busiest attractions, but the quieter places where everyday life continues at its own pace. If you ever visit Hanoi, don't only spend your time checking famous landmarks off your list. Take a walk through a local neighborhood, sit down at a small drink stall, visit an old apartment complex, or simply spend an evening in a public park. Sometimes those simple experiences become the most memorable parts of a journey. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Pong, and I'll see you again in my next adventure.